All right, so my favorite type of scent for the most part is typically going to be like a citrusy sort of unisex freshie that features, I would say, probably a lot of citruses, some slight sort of floral aspect to it, and a nice sort of woody base. Pretty much, that's pretty much like my bread and butter for the most part. But at the same time, I do also have more darker, bolder sort of fragrances in my collection that I do also really enjoy. So in today's video, I'm going to be going over some of those fragrances just to kind of also give you an idea of some really nice choices for those types of fragrances. All right, so it's going to be like 10 main fragrances with a honorable mention. All right, and the first sort of honorable mention is going to be from the house of Fragrance World. This is their take on Tom Ford's Cherry Smoke, and this is Cherry Incense from Fragrance World. So this is one of the fragrances that I got as a sample from like a Banadir fragrance haul, and this was one of the scents that I got, and this was really an amazing fragrance. As soon as I smelled it, extremely smooth, extremely high quality smelling, blended really well. And once I got the original Tom Ford fragrance and smelled it side by side with this one, I was really impressed. This is going to be for a cherry scent lover that doesn't want something extremely sweet or feminine smelling. So if you didn't like the way that something like Tom Ford's Lost Cherry smelled, then I definitely think that this scent profile is going to be a lot more, sort of on that unisex side. So it takes away a lot of that sort of sweetness that you get in something like Lost Cherry, and it infuses it with more sort of like incense smoke pretty much. It takes away, in my opinion, a lot of like the sort of vanilla and tonka that you get with something like Lost Cherry. This is still going to be a sweeter sort of fragrance, but it's definitely, in my opinion, a lot less syrupy sweet, a more so kind of aromatic from how that sort of incense works in with this fragrance, and just overall I would say more enjoyable or more appropriate for a male to wear pretty much. This is still going to be a unisex fragrance for sure, I think. But I definitely think that a guy could, definitely be a lot more comfortable wearing a fragrance like this over something like, for instance, the Maison Alhambra Lost Cherie. All right, so, or Lovely Cherie, I'm sorry. So definitely check this one out, man. Again, this is Cherry Incense from Fragrance World. All right, so just to start off the list here at number 10, what I have here is going to be Fragrance World's Tobacco Myth. So this is going to be their take on Carolina Herrera's Mystery Tobacco. And Mystery Tobacco, it pretty much is in that same sort of family as fragrances like PDM's Carlisle, Red Tobacco by Mancera. I believe there's another fragrance that is, also sort of in that sort of family pretty much. I think it's Trial of Bacchus or something like that. I can't remember the name of the house, but pretty much this, I would say, is my favorite sort of fragrance within that sort of family of fragrances. This is extremely smooth, both the original and this clone. The clone is not obviously going to be as smooth as what you get with the original, but this is definitely going to be a much more smoother fragrance and a much more enjoyable fragrance, in my opinion, than the Maison Alhambra exclusive to back. The exclusive to back, when you smell it side by side with both the original fragrance and even this, there's definitely some rough edges, when compared to, the original and this, with the Maison Alhambra. This one, I would say, is pretty much maybe like 10% off in terms of smoothness from the original. The tobacco in this is just really done well. The patchouli, just the citruses in the top, which I feel like is the main noticeable difference pretty much between this and the Maison Alhambra is the citruses just come off really sort of rough in that one. Whereas with this one, they're a lot smoother, a lot more higher quality and better blended. So if you can't afford something like, you know, Mystery Tobacco from Carolina Herrera, definitely look for this, because this is extremely close in quality and in smell. So again, definitely check this one out. And this one is going to be Fragrance World's Tobacco Myth. All right, so at number 9, what I have here is also from Fragrance World, and this is their take on MFK's Grand Soir, and this is Bearcat Ambre Eve. All right, so I don't know if like this line of the sort of Fragrance World MFK clones has like been discontinued or something like that, because I'm not really seeing these really being sold too many places anymore. Especially not the what is it, Bearcat Aqua Crystal or whatnot. It's the what is it, the MFK Aqua Universalis Forte clone, I believe. That one I haven't been able to find anywhere. Now I no longer own that one anymore. I gave it to a friend, but I was looking to actually purchase another bottle of it and haven't been able to find it, and really haven't been able to find too many of these really at all. Not this one. I don't think I've been able to find the Baccarat Rouge 540 version of Bearcat. I think really the only ones that I've really seen are like the Aqua Vitae interpretations that are still kind of floating around out there. And I've seen, I think, like the Gentle Fluidity Gold sort of clones out there in the Bearcat series. But the other ones I'm not really seeing too much anywhere. But pretty much with this one, man, this is going to be, I would say, more of a twist on MFK's Grand Soir. So Grand Soir to me definitely has a more sort of sparkly, ambery type of feel to it. This has it, but it definitely fades a lot more quicker than what it does in Grand Soir. This one definitely turns to more of kind of like that thicker, resinous sort of side that Grand Soir has later on down in the fragrance. But either way, I feel like this is still a very, very good interpretation, you know, of the scent profile. It's extremely smooth. It smells pretty high quality as well, especially considering the prices that these fragrances were going for when they came out, which was like between $20 and $30 pretty much. And these are 100 ml bottles, I believe, as well. So if you are looking to sort of get into that kind of MFK Grand Soir scent profile, and you know you don't have the money to be able to afford the original, then I would say this is definitely a good starting point for sure. Also, I mean, this is a extremely good date night fragrance as well. Again, it's not going to be as sort of sparkly and ambery as what the original MFK is, but this is still in the air a really amazing fragrance. All right, so again, this is going to be Bearcat Ambre Eve from Fragrance World. All right, so the next one on the list, this is actually the newest fragrance that I've gotten just in general here, and this is going to be from Al Haramain. And this is Al Haramain's Amber Oud Dubai Night. So Dubai Night, this is going to be their take on Arabian's Tonka from Montal. And this is also a very, very good interpretation of that fragrance. I would say about 85% close pretty much to Arabian's Tonka. The difference between this and Arabian's Tonka is this comes off to me as being a little bit more kind of like on the airier, fresher side pretty much. So it's a little bit more easier to wear and a little bit more versatile than what Arabian's Tonka is. Arabian's Tonka to me is definitely a little bit more dense than what this one comes off as. And then also the rose in this to me comes off as being a little bit more sweeter and jammier than what it does in Arabian's Tonka. But this, just like Arabian's Tonka, is extremely strong. So this is something that you only need to wear, you know, maybe 2 times, or I'm sorry, you only need to spray about 2 times for the most part, 2 to 3 times maximum. And that's going to get you through an entire day. You're going to get monstrous projection and, you know, extremely long longevity. So This is, I guess, for some people, this may not necessarily make sense to buy, considering the fact that, I mean, I've seen Arabian's Tonka on discounters for like around $90 to $100 or so. And I believe this fragrance goes for like about 50-ish before shipping. So I mean, it's still about half the price as what you would pay for Arabian's Tonka from like a discounter for the most part, while still being about 85% close. But I know some people kind of feel like, you know, if there's only like a $30 to $50 difference between a clone and the original fragrance, for a lot of people, they feel like, you know, it makes more sense to just go out and buy the original. I think in this case, for me, this one is good enough, you know, to where I feel like I don't necessarily need to go out and buy the original. This one definitely, again, it checks pretty much all the boxes, you know, in terms of performance, closeness of smell, you know, and just overall, it's a really, really nice fragrance. So definitely, man, check this one out. Again, this is Dubai Night from Ambre Eve from Al Haramain. All right, so next one on the list, this is going to be from the house of Mercedes-Benz, and this is Mercedes-Benz Club Black. So this is just a pretty much, it's like a smoky sort of vanilla scent. It gets compared a lot to Guerlain Spiritueuse Double Vanille. I don't necessarily think that it smells that close to that fragrance. It does have some aspects, I would say, of, you know, Spiritueuse Double Vanille, but to me, there's a much heavier emphasis on bergamot in this particular fragrance, which gives it like a much more sort of fresher feel to it. And I would also say more of kind of like a designer-ish type of feel. And then also this has a lot more sort of like smoky incense than what Guerlain Spiritueuse Double Vanille has. But either way, man, this is still a really, really nice vanilla scent. Definitely a vanilla scent that I feel like, you know, is a type of vanilla scent that a man could easily pull off and not feel like, you know, it's too sweet of a fragrance or too feminine or anything like that. But this is still at the same time, I would say, pretty unisex. So I feel like women could also, for sure, you know, get away with wearing this fragrance and it would still smell amazing on them as well. All right. The performance on it is pretty decent. The projection on it is not really going to be that great. But at least on my skin anyway, longevity wise, I'm getting at least, you know, 8+ hours pretty much whenever I wear this fragrance. So really, really beautiful vanilla scent. And again, this is going to be Mercedes-Benz Club Black. All right, so we've got our first sort of freshie on the list, and this one is going to be from Chanel, and this is Bleu de Chanel Parfum. So the Parfum version, to me, at least so far from what I've smelled, this is like the most darkest version, pretty much. Most darkest, most mature, you know, sort of version of Bleu de Chanel. It's not gonna be as bright as, especially not the EDT, but also not as bright as like what the EDP is either. This is gonna be more of sort of like, in my opinion, more of kind of like a smokier, woodier, and just more sort of, you know, tamed version pretty much of Bleu de Chanel. In my opinion, this is the sort of best smelling version of Bleu de Chanel. But I think in terms of, you know, actually wearing the fragrance and enjoying it, I do kind of prefer the EDP over this one for sure. The EDP and the Parfum are definitely my favorite two out of the three. But this one I feel like is kind of more so suited for like more nighttime wear for the most part. Whereas I definitely would more so reach for the EDP in the daytime. I don't necessarily see myself really wearing the EDP that much at night. This is definitely going to be the fragrance that I would more so reach for during that time period of the day. All right. So this is also going to be the most expensive. I believe when this first came out, several years ago, this was like around $150-ish, I believe, retail. I guess with inflation, that's kind of going up. I believe now this goes for like, I don't know, 190 or 200 or something like that. So this is pretty high up, when it comes to a designer fragrance. But I do feel like the way that this smells, it is worth it. It is the best, out of the whole Bleu de Chanel line, in my opinion, in terms of smell. So definitely, again, check this one out. This is Bleu de Chanel Parfum. All right, so next one on the list, this is going to be from Paris Corner, and this is their take on YSL's Baby Cat, and this is Rifaaqat. So to me, Rifaaqat it's about 80 to 85% YSL Baby Cat. I would just say that in the opening, pretty much this is going to give you a slightly more smokier incense, sort of feel to the fragrance than what, Baby Cat does. To me, Baby Cat opens up with a little bit more pepper. It has a slightly more, I don't want to say fresher, but I guess more sort of aromatic sort of feel to it. And then in the sort of far dry down with this one, the vanilla in this definitely is sweeter, and I feel like it sort of outshines what I get from the original YSL Baby Cat. I feel like it kind of turns a little bit more sort of leathery and suede-y in the original Baby Cat than what it does in this one. This one definitely comes off as more of like a sort of sweeter, sort of true vanilla smell, in my opinion, at least in that stage of the fragrance. So that's why I decided to keep this bottle of it, because I like this interpretation the most out of pretty much, all of the ones that I've smelled. All right, so definitely, man, if you're looking for, I would say, YSL Baby Cat with a slight sort of twist, check this one out, man. I did list in the community tab. Joma Shop had these on sale for $18 before shipping, and their shipping is like $5.99 or something like that. So I feel like for like around $23, $24 pretty much after everything is all said and done, this is absolutely worth it at that price. All right, so again, this is going to be Paris Corner's Rifaaqat. All right, so the next one on the list, this is one of my favorite sort of freshies of all time, pretty much. Sadly, it is discontinued, but this is from the house of Giorgio Armani, and this is going to be Acqua Di Gio Profumo. So I know they've released the sort of new Acqua Di Gio Parfum, I believe it is, which, people have said that this does smell a lot like that fragrance. There are just some sort of slight differences, but at least for me, man, I really, really enjoy this fragrance. Definitely am holding on to, I believe this is a 75. Yeah, this is a 75 ml bottle that I have. And this is the, sort of original magnetic cap version, pretty much. So this one is going to be, it's going to have that sort of original strength that the original formulation did, that I feel like the snap-on cap ones just don't have, pretty much. But pretty much this is like a really sort of dark, slightly smoky, slightly, heavy on patchouli type of aquatic scent. It's definitely very unique, really masculine smelling. And just overall, like I said, the first time I smelled this fragrance, I love this fragrance. I got this fragrance initially, like, I want to say probably back in like 2017 or something like that, 2016, through, it was one of those scent subscription services. I believe it was like Scentbird or something like that, or Scentbox. And I mean, I went through that sample that I had, which was supposed to last me like a month. I went through that sample in probably like, I don't know, a week and a half or something like that, 2 weeks. Which, I mean, I still have samples to this day from that, subscription that I haven't completely used yet. So That's how much I really love this fragrance. Also, when I got the fragrance, it was during the summertime, so I was really wearing this one a lot, man. This is, again, in my opinion, I would say probably one of the best sort of aquatic style fragrances for men that have been, you know, put out there pretty much. So if you can still find a vintage bottle of this fragrance, then I would definitely say pick it up, especially if it's at a reasonable price. And again, this is Acqua Di Gio Profumo from Giorgio Armani. All right, so the next one on the list, this is going to be from the house of the Woods collection, and this is their take on PDM's Leighton, and this is Dusk by the Woods collection. So if you're not familiar with Leighton, it's pretty much, I would say, one of the most sort of popular winter and fall style fragrances for men for the most part. It starts off with like a heavy dose of lavender. You get a lot of cardamom in the fragrance as well to kind of start off. And then it kind of turns into like this sort of, I would say, vanillic, sort of spicy sort of scent pretty much in the dry down. It's a really amazing fragrance for sure. And I would say definitely one of the most sort of wearable, sort of niche style fragrances pretty much. Now, the way that this one comes off is, this one is not going to be sort of as like mentholated as what the original smells in the opening. I don't know exactly what note really causes, you know, that sort of mentholated smell. I don't know if it's like the apple that they're using in the fragrance or something like that. But that's the vibe that you initially get with the original Leighton. With this one, this is a lot more sort of smoothed out and doesn't really have that pretty much. But I would say where this one really shines is like in the dry down, when you start to get that sort of, you know, spice vanilla that starts to come out in the dry down. Almost kind of smells like a Twix bar or something like that pretty much in the dry down. That's what you kind of get you know, with this particular fragrance in the dry down, and also with the original Leighton. It does smell a little bit better in the original Leighton. It's definitely a little bit more sort of creamier and richer, I would say, in the original, but this one still comes, at least I would say, about 90% close to the original Leighton. So for the price difference, I mean, to me, this one is, I would say, one of the best sort of, you know, values that you can pick up when it comes to like a really high quality Leighton clone. So definitely, if you're into Parfums de Marly's Leighton and, you know, you can't afford you know, original bottle of that fragrance, then definitely check this one out. I believe normally on Joma Shop it goes for a little bit over $50, and this is a 100 ml bottle. All right, so again, Dusk by the Woods collection. All right, so the next one on the list, this is gonna also be from Fragrance World, and this is their take on Tom Ford's Oud Wood, and this is Oud Wonder from Fragrance World. So really close interpretation of Oud Wood. This does give me pretty decent performance now. It didn't when I initially got it. I feel like when I initially got this fragrance, it didn't last for more than like a couple of hours or so, and then it was pretty much gone. Now I'm definitely getting at least I would say about 7 to 8 hours pretty much out of this fragrance when it comes to total longevity. And this is pretty much, it does have like a really sort of woody feel to the fragrance. But this still at the same time has like a really sort of fresh, sort of aromatic feel to it, which I believe comes from like notes like cardamom pretty much. So this is very sort of cardamom heavy. I would say definitely more kind of cardamom heavy, especially in the opening, than what you're getting from any sort of wood. I do believe that oud is like a listed note in this fragrance, but I don't really smell any actual oud in this fragrance. You know, if there is any, I guess it's just kind of like in the far background as sort of like a base note or something like that to give the fragrance like a backbone. But both in this fragrance and even in the original, I feel like you really don't smell too much actual oud pretty much. So if you're somebody that doesn't really like oud in fragrances, I would say still give this fragrance a try. Again, this is definitely going to be more of kind of like a sort of fresh, spicy, sort of oriental style fragrance for the most part. All right, so again, this is going to be Oud Wonder from Fragrance World. All right, and then the last one on the list, this is Absolute Gold from Fragrance World as well. So this is their take on Gold Myrrh Absolute from Carolina Herrera. This was a fragrance that when I smelled this side by side with the original from Carolina Herrera, this was like extremely close to the original fragrance. And I mean, the quality on this when compared to the Carolina Herrera, it was like pretty much right up there with the Carolina Herrera. So I was really, really surprised at, you know, how good this one smelled compared to the original. And I mean, pretty much what this is it's, to me, I guess you could kind of consider this maybe like a gourmand style fragrance, but it's not like your typical sort of gourmand. So it's not going to be something that's like super, super sweet and super thick and heavy. This is definitely, I would say, a lot more sort of airy. It definitely is more kind of closer to your skin as well. So it's not going to be something that's super thick and heavy. And it just kind of comes off as like this really sort of natural, dusty, I would say, kind of cacao powder sort of mixed with sort of vanilla. And it kind of has like a sort of smoky aspect to it as well. All right. It does open up pretty peppery as well. So there's a lot going on in this fragrance for sure, I would say. But if you're looking for like a different sort of gourmand style fragrance that kind of has, you know, more of sort of like a sophisticated nature to it, then I would say definitely check this one out, man. You may actually be pretty surprised with how much you like this fragrance. All right, so again, this is going to be Absolute Gold from Fragrance World. And that's the list, man. Definitely let me know if you all have actually smelled or owned any of these fragrances, and if so, what do you all think about these? Do you like these fragrances? Do you hate them? Are most of them just okay to you? Let me know in the comments. And also, again, if you're brand new to the channel, do me a favor, go ahead and subscribe. And again, that's Jamar from Vegas Scents. I'll see y'all in the next video.